Let's move on. Cochich. Is that how you say? Anyways, I think it's Brett. Let's go with Brett. I think his name is Brett. He just throws a golf question at me, which I am here for. Top 3 favorite golf courses you've played. I can't stop at 3. This is one of those, it's just like the road trip thing. It's like 3 hours isn't a road trip. Top 3 isn't a list. So I've got to go top 5. And candidly, I don't know if it's enough because I'm going to leave one off that is devastating to me. Devastating. So here it is. I will give you in order. I will rank them number 1 to 5. My favorite course that I've ever gotten to play is Oakmont Country Club in Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh. It's where the U.S. Open is. And in 2016, when Fox had the U.S. Open, I was doing some of the digital production for them. And I got to go play Oakmont just weeks before the U.S. Open. And it was like wrestling a grizzly bear. And I loved it. It was the most difficult course I've ever played, and I loved every moment of it because it was straightforward. It was right in front of you, and I thought it was absolutely fabulous. So Oakmont was my top course that I've ever played. Number 2, and I'm lucky, guys, like I've gotten to travel around because of that work that I did with Fox on the USGA product. I got to travel around and play some of the best places in the country. So Oakmont was number 1. Number 2, National Golf Links of America. Way up there on Long Island, up there kind of in the Hamptons, right next door to Shinnecock Hills. National Golf Links of America is incredible. I won't bore you with the story, but let's just say I had a chance to break 70 for the first time in my life on that day, on that round, and I may have gotten misclubbed by a caddy on 18. Might be that guy to blame the caddy. You know what? He misclubbed me. I don't know. I hit it over the green. Like you can't tell me it's playing 260 when it's playing 240. I shot 70. It was devastating and I loved it, every moment of it. And you might be thinking to yourself like, shut up. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. Number 3, Pebble Beach. Again, played this right before the US Open when we had the US Open product in 2019. I thought Pebble Beach was insanely incredible. That stretch from 3 through 11 is the best stretch of golf on the planet. It was an absolute treat and got to play with, it was an interesting group. I was playing with Shane Bacon and The Miz from WWE and Chris Harrison. And then we had a 5th and it was, I can't remember her last name, Kira Dixon. And she had won like Miss America. So we were playing with Miss America, The Miz, and Chris Harrison. Awesome. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. So that was Pebble Beach. The week of the U.S. Open in 2019, I got to tag along and play my number 4 course, which is Cypress Point. That was insane. That's some of the best golf on the face of the planet. And everyone knows that. And if you ever get a chance to play that, that's like obviously a bucket list. And then here's the number 5 one. And this is a bit controversial. Okay. You have to keep in mind, my favorite spot on the planet to go play golf is Bandon Dunes in Oregon. If you have not gone up there, oh my goodness, you've got to go up there. And my favorite course of the Bandon properties is the Core Crenshaw designed Bandon Trails that goes back away from the ocean through the trees. It's incredible. That's heaven. That's heaven. In fact, sometimes like if I want to close my eyes and think of heaven, I think of like 8 through 12 at Bandon Trails. And if you've played it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those are it. Those are my 5. Oakmont, National Golf Links of America, Pebble Beach, Cypress Point, and Bandon Trails. There's a clear omission here, and it's just because I haven't played it. So, just throwing it out. There's might be one down in Georgia that I would love to play at some point, but, Condoleezza Rice, you know, play around the golf if you want. Talk about college football, geopolitical events. I'm up for whatever you want. Let's move on. I can't read these at what is it? Libermaniac 11, whatever. Okay. Goes on to say, I've had an argument with a friend who says NIL will be the end of college football because the same programs will win every year. I counter that there have always been 6 to 8 top programs in a year that can win the Natty, and NIL hasn't changed that. Any thoughts? Love the question. I actually firmly believe, and you're missing a part of this, NIL plus the transfer portal, I believe is spreading out the parity in college football. It's driving parity is what I should say. I thought any number of teams could win the national championship this last year. Obviously, Ohio State turned into a supernova, and they had a great roster. And yeah, they went and they won the national championship. But look at what we saw in the playoff. You know, ASU taking Texas to the brink, Notre Dame beating Georgia. We've had back-to-back national championships outside of the SEC and with northern schools in the Big Ten with Michigan and Ohio State. Oregon was the number 1 team in the country on the West Coast. Penn State looks like they're going to be really good. Notre Dame's not going anywhere. SMU out of nowhere goes to the playoff. Indiana gets a roster. Here's what I'm trying to tell you is that I actually believe that we have more parity in the sport than we've ever had before for 2 main reasons. There's no more sitting if you're a really good player, which means you can't stockpile. Think about it. If to get the most amount of money in NIL, you have to play and start, then you're not going to sit behind somebody at a blue chip program. So those programs can no longer stockpile talent, keeping it away from other universities. So now you're going to have more talent across the spectrum in college football, which is going to drive parity. So the great programs have become a little bit worse, and the good programs have become a little bit better. And so now you're getting an evening out of the boats here in the harbor, and I think that you're going to have, like next year, any one of 15, 17 teams that can't just go to the playoff, but could potentially win a national championship. And I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that. This is one of the reasons why I keep stating that we're at the dawn of the golden age of college football, because we are entering into, and next year I think is going to be a great example of this. We are entering into seasons in which we can clearly point at between 8 and 12 to 15 teams and say any one of those teams could potentially win the national championship. And just in our rear view mirror a couple of years ago, we could point at 3, like maybe. So the fact that you cannot stockpile talent by sitting great players as backups because they have the freedom to move and the freedom to move with payment, I think has changed the game totally. So I think it makes college football better from a parity standpoint. We move on. Joel, what are the top 5 most underrated venues / environments in college football? I've done these lists before. I've done like my best venues. And listen, and you kind of touch on it here, Mr. Dunaway. Venues are driven by environments, and environments are driven by matchup. So in a lot of cases, it depends greatly, like what game you're going to either see or call, in my case. There are some venues that I either played in or have called games in that were just so iconic that I was like, oh man, this is incredible. The old Cotton Bowl to do the Red River game is one of those. I played as a senior. We played Miami in the old Orange Bowl stadium in September. That was incredible. So, you know, there's the history, but the underrated portion of this, I think, is fascinating. So I'm just going to go with underrated venues here because environments, again, are driven by matchup. I think a great underrated venue is Kinnick Stadium in Iowa. That is a great underrated venue. I think it's a terrific venue. I think Folsom Field in Colorado is underrated. Fans are right on top of you. They've gotten it going there. It's a good student section. Husky Stadium for UW up in Seattle, that is a beautiful stadium that is very loud. The setting, their redo, it doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's one of the great venues in all of college football. Autzen, I don't think, gets its due because everyone just talks about the big stadiums. Oh, LSU at night and the Shoe and the Big House and, Bama and Athens and all these places. And yeah, those places are great, but underrated. I think Autzen Stadium, for being just over 60,000 people, like, it gets loud. It's phenomenal up there. So those are a few of them for me. I think the most underrated would be Kinnick in Iowa. I think that's a really cool venue. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.